Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Digitalk Arkitechs. Today we have Dino from Bootstrap. Dino, welcome to the show. Please go ahead and tell us about yourself and your experience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Dino Jardin. I currently lead sales at Bootstrap. We are a custom software development agency. So we focus on building anything from websites to mobile apps, other software solutions, increasingly now AI-oriented solutions as well, as the market kind of demands and dictates. My experience is in the same vein. So for the last sort of 10 plus years, I've been in consulting and professional services, largely focused on digital transformation as a whole. So helping businesses to solve some kind of problem, whether it's internal, or something that they want to improve inside of the organization, either operational efficiency or whatever the problem may be, through to developing and deploying solutions or products for their customers, working with startups to build their initial kind of product to take to market. So that's my background, and that's what we do at Bootstrap.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here with us today. Let's jump into the conversation. You work for a software company and you have a background in leading sales at Bootstrap, and before that Green Lemon Company. In your experience, what's the biggest shift you've seen in companies' approach to their digital transformation and automation?
Yeah, so there's been a big shift from the initial kind of explosion of digital transformation back in 2014-15, when every company wanted to build an app and get on the App Store because they felt they had to, because that's where their customers were. That's how they wanted to engage and had to engage with their customers, not unlike the current state of AI. Years down the road, 2020, and along, one of the big learnings has been that there has to be a very particular emphasis on developing solutions with the user experience in mind. In the early days were a lot of apps that were built not understanding or considering the context in which that solution would be used, the user that would be using it. And for that reason, there were a lot of apps that were built and there was a lot of money that was spent that solved no problems. So it's easy to identify a problem. It's a little bit more difficult to architect a solution that actually has the value that is intended. A great example that sticks out in my mind, I was working with a company in Texas. They were an energy company, a huge energy company. So they had nuclear power plants scattered around Texas. And every day there were large armored trucks carrying nuclear materials into the plants. And because of the inherent risk around that, it was a very robust and rigorous process of approving each truck before it entered the facility. So the problem was that the trucks would get backed up for almost 12 hours. It was very inefficient to get them through and into the plant, and it became a huge cost problem for the company, and they wanted to increase the speed of which that occurred. The people who had to inspect the trucks at the gates were armed guards with full kind of military garb, carrying AK-47s or whatever it was. But they had to get underneath the trucks, inside of them, truly inspect every aspect of it to make sure that they were okay to go in. The way that they then processed them was, after the inspection, they would have a piece of paper and they would check a box for everything that was either right or wrong, and then input it into a computer system, and then the truck could go through. So the company understood the problem. What they didn't think about is what solution would make the most sense. So they, on their own, went and built an iPad app, which would allow, as the guards inspected the truck, them to tick the box on the app and then automatically update in the system that they use, so that once they were done with the inspection, there wasn't the weight of having to then go and transcribe from the paper into the computer. It wasn't working and things weren't speeding up. So they called us and asked us why. And we went and we looked at the situation and the context of the user, the context of the environment, and sort of investigated the nuance of what the solution required in order to be valuable. So the problem was because they're carrying guns and they have all this heavy gear on and whatnot, the iPad didn't really help them. They couldn't hold on to it while they were digging through the trucks and getting around. So we suggested instead doing an Apple Watch app, which allowed them to very easily tick a box as they went around and inspected. And that sincerely, 50, 75% increase the speed at which they could process the trucks and move them into the plant. So thinking about the user, the context of the solution, and having a very methodical approach in doing that research prior to designing, developing, implementing a solution has been a huge shift and focus of the way that we approach developing solutions more recently.
Very good. That's crazy.
It was crazy. Truly
It's
a very
crazy
unique
that
experience.
the solution was right. The thought behind it was okay, like they were solving the problem. The problem is the execution just was not ideal.
Exactly. Exactly. It's little things that, and it makes sense because, this company was an energy company, right? They hired nuclear physicists. They didn't hire app developers and UI and UX designers, so they don't think about these sorts of things. And that was the problem in the early days, is people thought that they knew how to,
Do it
you
all.
know, do it all. Yeah, and it's a little bit more complex than that. And as we as app users and as the world has advanced, there's a certain expectation in the usability and the speed and the performance of an app, and all of that needs to be considered as well. Otherwise, it just won't get used, and it's a waste of money. And adoption in the early days for a lot of those apps was much lower than expected. So we really focus on making sure that we build something that will be adopted and used and is easy to use and solves the problem and actually has value.
I agree. All right. So, on that note, from both your consulting and hands-on execution that you've done over the years, what is a common misconception about AI? Let's go in marketing and sales that you've had to constantly clarify to clients and colleagues.
Yeah, I think the biggest and most obvious one is that it doesn't remove the human element. AI and whether it's agentic AI or an LLM or all of these kind of new emerging AI
Technology.
solutions, technologies, yeah, they still require human input, and it needs to be considered as more of an amplification of your output rather than a replacement for a role or a person or a function. So I think a big consideration is understanding what it is that you really want to achieve. Do you want your sales force or your marketing team to be able to reach a wider audience? Do you want them to be able to more quickly and effectively spin up copy? Do you want them to be able to research a larger volume of companies and then be able to engage
Competitors.
and exactly. So a lot of people think I can click a button and AI will do everything. It's much more complex than that. Similarly to what we just spoke about, you need to understand the problem and then look at which AI solution works the best or which set of solutions works best together. And then think about how to use that to empower a team or a function or a role rather than replace.
It's interesting because it's the exact same issue, but I think it applies to big and small companies. It's not unique to one or the other, because that misconception is something I come across often. They think that a lot of people actually, and it's not just business owners, it's everybody across the board. If they implement AI in some sort of way, then that's taking somebody out of the picture. And the way I've been trying to explain it, it's exactly what you said. The output is not about removing people, it's increasing their output or the amount of work that they can cover in their regular day, right? So it's more of, and the other thing is, the other misconception actually, it's actually kind of funny nowadays, is everybody knows ChatGPT. and they just say that's AI. But the other misconception is like AI is so much more, right? And for the average person that's not, constantly listening to AI news and what's coming out and all, they just kind of stay in that bubble, right? Like Chat GPT, you go, you ask questions, that's AI. But it's so much bigger than that, right? It's the amount of solutions that you can build with AI. It's so massive today, but
Yeah.
most people don't know the reach of AI into the end, the benefits that it could have to, and add to your business, right? So I'm definitely right there with you.
Yeah, not only that, but also the rapid pace of acceleration of not only new solutions, but even the way AI is being used. It's, I mean, it almost gives you whiplash. So keeping up to date with how to properly and best, use and get the most out of it is a massive component as well. For us specifically at Bootstrap, obviously we develop solutions. So there's a lot of talk about AI replacing developers.
Yes,
Instead, the conversation should be focused on how AI helps us to accelerate our development. Because as I said
I
earlier,
agree.
developing isn't just about putting the code together. It's about understanding the solution, understanding the use case and the context and all of that. And so we use AI to increase our efficiency and speed of development, but not to reduce the workforce. It increases our output without
Yeah.
reduction in, yeah. So it's
Well,
another
it kind
big
of go
misconception.
because thinking of it, we can kind of we can go back to your example or your experience with that company from Texas, and you go, well, the AI will help you develop the solution faster, but the AI can't go and figure out that the problem for the implementation was that the guards and the people doing or using the solution were unable to carry on the task because the solution wasn't developed with their environment in mind.
In
Right?
mind,
Like
exactly.
the AI would never be able to figure that one out. It would be a
Yeah,
person going and standing there and looking, I see what the problem is. Now I can go in and use the AI to formulate a better solution, but the AI can't go in and see that physically, right? So I
exactly.
think yeah, we're right there on the same page. So let me ask you another question. We're going to keep going AI and technology because that's where we're at these days. As you know, we at Digital Architects, we focus on making marketing easy and hassle free. At least that's the what advice would you give businesses trying to choose the right automation and AI strategy so they don't feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, good question. I think it comes back to maybe people starting from the misconceptions that they have about this being a plug and play silver bullet solution for whatever problem they're trying to solve. When the reality is there are more things to consider. I think they need to work back from the problem. What is it that we are trying to achieve? Not to sound like a broken record, but do we want to increase our sales team or marketing team's output in terms of volume? Do we want to increase operational efficiency? What is the problem we're trying to solve? Who are the users that will be using it? Um, all of these kinds of considerations. And then from that, a strategy needs to be built for what tooling should be put into place. You need to look at the reality of things like the size of your team, technical debt. Is this something that you're going to be able to manage on your own? What sort of training is involved? You really need a strategy that works very specifically for your circumstances, your team, and the problem that you are trying to solve, which isn't as simple as it sounds. Again, it's more about AI as an empowerment tool rather than a come in and just fix everything with the click of a button. So my suggestion, and we do a huge amount of this, is we'll do an AI discovery audit. So we'll come in and we'll look at your business, and there's two typical scenarios that we encounter. One, a company will say, we think we're missing an opportunity to use AI to do something better. Can you come in and help us identify what that opportunity is? So we'll look at their business processes, we'll understand each of the kind of users involved and the stakeholders, and then look at, okay, here's where you can increase with some kind of AI solution, increase output, increase whatever it is, engagement, that kind of thing. The other way that we'll engage is people will say, look, we want to use AI to achieve X. So they know the problem, they know what they want to do, but they are an AI or a technology first company. Maybe they are a manufacturing company. So they need somebody who understands the marriage between technology and the business to architect a solution that makes sense for them and for their users to be able to effectively use and adopt that makes sense in the context of the problem.
That's a good strategy.
Thanks. We like it. It's working well for us.
Okay, so let's get to you have a background in neuroscience, which is fascinating actually. When we first started talking, you were telling me how you wanted to be a doctor. And then you switched to sales.
Yeah. Well, I thought why do something silly like, saving lives when I can sell software? So I thought it was an obvious
That
shift.
was the thought process, right?
Correct.
But you know, now that you're in sales, now you're blending basically your neuroscience background with your sales experience. How is this helping you unlock new opportunities and solve tough challenges?
Yeah, interesting question. I think that it's difficult to draw a direct correlation.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't sold any neuroscience solutions, as it were. I mean, we've worked with hospitals and in healthcare and health tech, but I certainly don't have enough of a background to open your skull and help you with your brain. But maybe anecdotally, something that's very interesting and has been helpful in my career is one of my professors for a neuropsychology class gave me a book called Neuromarketing, which kind of focuses on the prediction of consumer behavior, um, and how buying decisions can be driven by sort of unconscious choices or subconscious choices. And it really talks about uncovering and identifying the thinking behind a customer's buying process and guiding them along that journey with um, some sort of strategy or plan. So fascinating book. Really, the most important thing I think that came out of all of that schooling was this understanding of how human psychology is universal, and understanding people is critical to selling. So if you haven't read that book, definitely read it. Fascinating. Yeah.
Now we
Otherwise,
have a
otherwise
recommendation.
that yeah.
Well, on that note, if there was one thing about that book that you could share with the audience, what would it be? One takeaway.
One takeaway. I think, okay, I believe there's an anecdote in there about, and everyone will relate to this, IKEA. So again, the book talks about sort of, consumer behavior and how you can understand the, the decision-making process of a consumer and help to guide them. So IKEA has designed their stores in a way, if you've been in one, that sends you down a very, very specific path. You go through, you know, kitchen, living room, dining room. You can't go directly to just what you want. You have to see everything, and you
Mm-hmm.
end up leaving with more than what you came with. So that was a huge takeaway, is simply thinking about the customer's buying journey and the way that you guide them through it and the thoughts and the questions that they may have, anticipating those, preparing for those, and effectively and efficiently sort of guiding them through that buying process. That was a great example of that, I thought. Similarly, I've never left Target without, spending 10 times
Just with
what
the
I've
one
walked in.
thing.
Never, I don't know anyone who has. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
same concept
It's a
applies,
it. It
Yeah,
is also why Walmart and every grocery store put the milk way back in the back wall of the remote corner in every store that you go to, so that you
exactly
go
that.
through everything and pick up stuff along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's all neuromarketing. Yeah. So that was a
It
big
is
takeaway.
also it is also why grocery stores and big retail stores, I mean, just think of Costco. Once every few years completely readjust their stores, right? So that people get thrown off and now they have to relearn the path and go
Yeah.
through it all over again.
Yeah, they want you to meander. I used to work with Kroger. Kroger's a large grocery store
Yep,
in
in the US.
most of the US, yeah. So they they have entire departments and teams dedicated to the way they design shelves and end caps
Mm-hmm.
and, as you say, change it often, and it's all very purposeful, very intentional, and designed to guide the buyer in the way that they sort of
Yeah.
want. At the same time, though, they understand that buyers also want to buy the way that they want to buy. So they now also offer home delivery, online pickup, all these other services
Yep.
because you have to cater to, you have to meet your customers where they are. So there's that understanding as well, which again comes back to the same kind of concept of neuromarketing, understanding consumer behavior and decision making and ensuring that you're catering to that.
All right, well, since we're talking, consumer behavior in marketing, let's keep going along that route. Tell me, with the new trends in the way influencer marketing is working right now in customer retention and the way we're using AI for personalization, what is one of the, trends that are exciting you the most nowadays? In all these, in the midst of all this technology, influencing marketing and behavior, right?
Yeah, yeah. What excites me the most or what scares me the most?
Well, you know
There might
what? Do
there
both.
may there may be
Let's
some
do both.
intersect there.
Let's
I
go with
think
what
that
excites you the most, and then we'll jump into what scares you the most. And I'll tell you something I listened to this morning that's really scary.
okay, good.
You
Yeah,
go.
Halloween's coming up, so perfect. It's a spooky
It
time
plays
to
right
do the
into
jobs
it.
that we do. So, I think if I could, I'd actually like to start with what scares me, or not necessarily scares me, but just the reality of what is an inevitable shift in the way that we sell and market because of the empowerment of AI and automation, the sheer volume of email and content
Yeah.
and across all the channels that's thrown at you is making it very easy to be drowned out.
I
So
agree.
the problem is, how do you get around that? And I think kind of the theme of this conversation has been coming back to the human element.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that people are more inclined and more interested in personalization in terms of messaging, very well researched or kind of proactively proposed messaging that shows that you've really done some research and understand this persona, this person, their business, their problem. I think that is the opportunity, is using some of this new technology to more effectively and at more depth research targets, identify opportunities, and then carefully craft messaging and potentially solutioning that appeals because it strikes a chord. I think that more and more people are looking to reconnect in person between COVID and AI and the millions of emails that you and I and everybody else gets every day that goes straight into the deleted box. That I've seen a lot of
Newsletter tag.
yes, I've seen a lot more kind of uniqueness in outreach. So gifting has become a big thing. We'll send you a gift card or a letter or something personalized that's tangible, that's physical, that just reminds you that there's a human on the other end of the line. I've seen a lot more meetups, and there's like tech walks are huge in big cities where people get together and from all kinds of different sides of technology and just meet and interact. So I think events are seeing a little bit of a resurgence. People are more
They are.
inclined to interact in person. So I think that both are necessary, but it takes a concerted, orchestrated effort across all of those channels to connect at the moment. Volume alone just doesn't cut it anymore.
Very good. So what excites you?
What excites me? What excites me? Well, what excites me is when someone responds to my email, frankly, or picks up the phone. But what excites me as far as an opportunity, I think that the most exciting thing for me is that we still don't really know what AI is going to mean in the next couple of years. We're still really at a nascent stage of
Yeah.
AI as a revolution in technology. So there's still a huge amount of opportunity to define and learn where AI will go, what of the solutions that are currently being used will fall away, what will remain, and how AI, especially with the rapid pace of change, will continue to change in that direction as dictated by the use of it and, the continued kind of path that we're going down. So I'm excited to see what eventually sort of shakes out and what AI will mean. At the moment, I don't think anybody really knows. So I'm excited to see where we end up with it in 2 years' time.
Okay, so the Halloween scary.
Yeah, tell me, please.
You know what scares me with AI? And I was just this morning listening to a little clip of a tech person talking about dark GPT. That is the name.
Dog
And
GPT.
I don't, yeah, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically an uncensored AI.
Hmm.
So, when you just think of when you ask ChatGPT a question and it does not want to go there, it tells you, it gives you a random, I don't know anything about it kind of idea.
Hmm.
Well, this
We'll go there.
does not deflect. It will answer it. And so I was listening, and this guy was explaining it. I guess there is already a lot of information out there about it, and it's basically just think of, you know, it's concerning, and that's the sad part, with technology. But again, that's happened for many years. That you have good actors and bad actors, right? And what scares me, with technology and AI nowadays, is the bad actors, right? The ones that, well, you and I sit here and we are thinking about the real life problem solution approach where we want to make life better for everybody, but for businesses and people's life, right? Improve their quality of life, their output, their how they do business and all of that. There is a world out there that's very dark. So that's the part that scares me. To think that there is already a dark GPT that can
Yeah.
answer something like, how to blow up things, how to scam people, how to all those things. That's what scares me of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
So there is my Halloween side of things.
I can't wait to get on it and see just how scary it can be. Yeah, and I think that speaks to the bigger question around the regulation of AI, right? We've talked a little bit
Hmm.
about the pace being so rapid in terms of the evolution, largely because it's unregulated. And that's great because things are changing quickly and we're seeing huge improvements and enhancements every day. But now there's things like this, so
It's
there
huge.
must be some sort of a balance. Either way, society already has irreversibly changed and will continue to change. I was just having a conversation with my friend the other day, where they said, I don't, I don't like the world that we live in anymore. And the unfortunate reality is that this is just the world that we live in. So it's about embracing, the best you can, what is available and what's out there, and using it in the way that, you think you should and can, and so, which is what we're doing. So that's all you can do, I think. And beyond that, it's out of your hands.
Yeah, pretty much. There's not much I can say about that, but
Yeah.
there, I mean, without a doubt, there are scary ways of AI application. And you know what? The the only thing I add here is we don't like it. People have to be aware that it exists because it's big. It already is a big issue, but it will only amplify and get bigger as all of these technologies get better and
Yeah.
better. Because let's be honest, right? Like they are the worst there'll ever be. They can
Yeah.
only get better from here. So when it gets into the hands of bad actors, it will be problematic, and we should be aware and probably prepared. And business
Absolutely.
should be prepared, right? Because we talk about scams and fraud and all those things, and with the way the technology is advancing, they are only going to get better at it too, right? Like that's just the way it works, right? As we get better at doing healthier businesses and doing good for the world, the ones doing the bad stuff will also kind of get there as well. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah, no, I was just gonna agree. I think similarly, the hope is that as sort of the bad actors continue to act badly, the good actors continue to develop and
perfect.
find a way to combat at that,
Yep.
right? So as with anything in any technology, this is just another version of the same thing that you see in every facet of life. It's human nature, really. Except
It
it's AI.
is driven by human nature.
Driven by human nature. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me pick your brain a little bit on your sales experience. You work with startups in enterprise companies of all sizes. How does your approach to building sales teams and driving growth shift depending on the scale and culture of each company?
Good question. I think that comes down to one crucial component of enterprise companies versus startups and sort of, mid-sized companies. The sales cycle for enterprise sales is much, much longer. The amount of stakeholders involved, the scale and scope of the
Thank you.
the solutions, organizational bureaucracy, sheer size of the deals, it just takes a much, much longer time. There's a lot more relationship building. It's the opportunity cost is much higher, right? It may
Right.
cost you 25 to $50,000, to close an enterprise deal, but the deal will be millions of dollars. So you need to account for that kind of ramp up as you're developing your team and your strategy. You can't focus on the same number of enterprise clients with a single salesperson as you can with a smaller company because there's less people to talk to at a smaller company. Decisions are made more quickly. Typically, the amount of money being discussed is less. With startups, there's also often inherent urgency because something must be built quickly and deployed, or the startup will very quickly fail. They have less tolerance for risk, so the sales cycles are much much quicker. So you can those are the primary factors to consider in how you put a team together, the amount of team members that you need on your team, and you're always working backwards from a revenue goal. So you may need, 10 deals with an enterprise focused strategy to hit a revenue goal versus 50 deals with a more kind of startup focused prospect list or target list. That all dictates the size of the team, the amount of prospects we're going after, the aggressiveness of the messaging, the outreach, the profiles you're reaching out to, right? The buyer profile at a Chase Bank is probably not the C-suite. It's more likely a director or even lower level. At a startup or mid-market company, you're more often probably talking to a C-suite or, VP plus. So the messaging changes, the copy changes, the approach changes. There's also a budgetary consideration for both. So with enterprise, you tend to need to be on site. There's a lot more travel involved. There's going to be a lot more rounds of presentations, a little bit more rigor in the decision-making process. Um, so those are the factors I consider. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so big or small startup, enterprise, which one's your favorite?
Oof. Good question. I personally, there's satisfaction to be gained from both, but there's no better feeling than working with a startup who's just gotten a Series A, is so excited, they've just got their team in place, everyone's ecstatic to build and launch their first product, and to be involved in that and be kind of ingrained in that culture, it rubs off on you. So you feel very
Yeah,
energized and part of this, fun sort of time in a company's trajectory. And then to see it go well and, take off is incredible because, you were part of that. I think a great example is Masterclass is one of our flagship customers. So I don't know if you know Masterclass, it's where like Gordon Ramsay teaches you how to cook. It was huge during COVID. Everybody was on. So we started with them when they were a very, very small startup. They needed a couple of engineers to help build out the initial platform. And then we grew to a team of 100 plus. So we built all of Masterclass, and watched them grow to be the giant that they are today,
they
which
are
is
giants.
incredibly, yeah, profoundly satisfying and very exciting. So I think that's hard to beat. On the other side of the spectrum, it's very interesting and can be very cool working with enterprise companies because seeing behind sort of the curtain of some of what goes on at these large organizations, like the companies we all know, Target and Humana and Shell and all these big
All the
companies
big ones. Yeah,
is fascinating, and closing a deal, that's 10, $15 million also feels great. So there's been, but there's less emotion, there's less emotion involved, and
that's yeah,
I yeah.
definitely. From my experience, I think I agree with you. The startup, it's more rewarding, I guess. I don't know, more
Yeah,
exciting.
that's the right word. Yeah, 100%.
Kind of like the enterprise level, it's more transactional, right? Like, so I've done project management for bigger companies, and obviously I was the CEO for a small development web development company, so I kind of been on both sides of that equation, and I think I'll agree with you with the startups, or when they're coming to ask you for help with a project. You just, the satisfaction of seeing it kind of evolve and become something, well, to become something, it's just one thing, because not every one of them do, but then become very successful. That's, something that as a person, you kind of, it gets you excited, right?
Yes.
And from enterprise, yeah, it's really, it's really kind of an accomplishment to be involved in these bigger deals, but at the same time, just like you said, it's so transactional, right? And there's so many steps, and you open the behind the curtains, and it's not all, roses, and there is a lot of stuff that go behind the scenes that
Yes.
in many cases you didn't even expect, and you also have to deal with a lot more politics, which sucks.
Yes, yes, it does.
um,
Yes. A lot of
so
patience required. A lot of politicking in these big companies, 100%. Yeah. And I think with startups, especially at Bootstrap, I mean, a huge portion of our business, we work very hard and have developed a methodology to, as I talked about in the beginning, ensure that we're building a product that will really be adopted by its intended users and actually solve the problem that it's meant to, and be successful. And because of that, we've launched a lot of products and companies that have found success, and the loyalty that accompanies that is very, very strong. So a huge amount of our business comes from referrals and references because these guys appreciate the work that we did for them and they remember us because we were there at the beginning. At
yep,
enterprise level, less so. You can
that's a lot harder, right?
be gone in a moment. Yeah. So that's another positive. One final thing I'll say though, it's not all roses
Yeah.
with startups. The
Okay, I know.
difference, just to make it clear, difficulty or the kind of exclusive difficulty that occurs with startups is that they often have not bought consulting or professional services before. They are entrepreneurs with an idea, and that's it. They don't know
That's
about the process of going through a custom software development cycle. They don't understand what to expect. So there's a lot of education and edification to
that
be done
happens,
as
yes.
to, yes, how we work and why we do things this way. So it can take a little bit more time and
The
energy
the
versus an enterprise
cycles,
customer
the
who, yes,
testing,
yes,
all of
they do
that.
this every
Uh,
day. Yeah, yeah. Procurement teams know all about what we do and who we are, and it's all just about let's talk price. With startups, you have to really explain, look, this is how we do things and why it's important to you and why you should consider it.
exactly. All right. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Thank you, Dina, for coming out and sharing this time with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. We'll sure hope to see you here again in the future. We can cover
Yeah,
more maybe on sales and see where we are with AI and technology and where you're at with all of it and how the business is going. But
absolutely.
again, thank you again for coming out and being here with us. Until we see you next time, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's been a
Have a
pleasure.
have an awesome time.
Have a good one.